Her scream didn't sound human. It sliced through the stillness of that Kansas afternoon like the cry of something cornered, something desperate. Elias Boone had come to the Miller Ranch to buy a horse, saddle money in hand and dust on his coat. When he pushed open the stall door, expecting a bay mare, he froze. A young woman lay on the barn floor, shaking so hard the straw around her quivered. Her face was pale, her breath ragged, and her whole body held the unmistakable stiffness of someone who had endured long hours of pain and fear. She kept trying to draw her legs in, but every attempt sent a shock through her body that made her gasp. Elias had seen plenty in his day: war wounds, men crushed under horses, ranch hands mangled by machinery, but never a woman suffering like this, alone in the shadows while the sun outside shone as if the world were fine. She struggled to lift herself on one elbow, her voice splintering like dry wood. "I can't move," she whispered. "Please, help me." Elias sank to one knee beside her. He didn't touch her yet. He didn't even reach for his hat, which lay forgotten at his feet. Something about the way she winced at every shift told him she had been held in a position no human should be forced into for that long. The bruises along her arms, the raw skin at her wrists, the fear in her eyes, none of it came from a fall or accident. This was harm done with intention. "Ma'am," he said softly, "my name's Elias. I won't hurt you. Just let me see how bad things are so I can get you out of here." She nodded weakly. "My name is Hannah," she managed. "Please, sir, don't leave me here. Not another minute." Elias carefully slid one arm behind her shoulders. Even that small touch made her grab onto his shirt with both hands, clinging like someone who'd run out of strength hours ago. Heat radiated off her skin, fever. Infection was already creeping in. He looked toward the ranch house. Silent. Empty. Not a soul in sight. The quiet felt wrong. "Hannah," he said, "I'm taking you away from here. Right now." Fear flickered across her face. "Will danger follow you too?" Elias felt the truth settle heavy on him. "Yes," he said. "But it won't stop me." He lifted her in his arms, slow and steady, and she exhaled a long, trembling breath, not fear, but relief. The sunlight outside made her blink, like she'd forgotten the world could be bright. The warm prairie wind brushed her face and she cried quietly, overwhelmed by something as simple as air that didn't hurt. Elias placed her gently on his horse, steadying her until she could sit. "You're safe now," he said. "I got you." She leaned her head back against him as he mounted. "You really are taking me away," she whispered. "Yes, ma'am," he murmured. "And we ain't looking back." The ride to Boone Ranch took hours. Elias spoke now and again, stories about horses he'd broken, land he'd ridden, storms he'd outrun. Nothing heavy. Just the sort of talk that kept her awake, kept her mind from slipping into dark places. Every bump made her wince, but she never complained. Not once. When Boone Ranch came into view, Hannah stared at the neat white fences and red barn doors like she was looking at a memory rather than a real place. Elias carried her inside, calling for Mrs. Harper, the housekeeper who'd been with him since his 20s. The older woman gasped, gathered hot water and linens, and helped settle Hannah in the spare room. Hannah kept whispering apologies for being a burden. "No," Elias said firmly. "Not one bit." And somehow she believed him. But when she lay back and closed her eyes, a thought returned like a cold blade: Caleb would come looking. 2 days later, trouble arrived. Elias saw the dust trail first, thin, rising fast. Riders. Angry ones. He stepped out quietly, shutting the door so Hannah wouldn't hear. Caleb Miller barreled into the yard like a man who believed the world belonged to him. He yanked his horse to a stop and pointed at Elias with a shaking hand. "Bring my wife out here," he barked. "Right now." Elias didn't move. Didn't flinch. "She's hurt," he said calmly. And she left because she wanted to. Wanted? Caleb spat. She belongs to me. She does what I say. Something tight and hot rose in Elias's chest. Not today she doesn't, he said. Not ever again. Caleb lunged and shoved him. Elias shoved back harder. Caleb swung wildly, landing a hit just under Elias's eye. Blood blurred Elias's vision, and the ranch hands behind Caleb moved to swarm. But one of Boone Ranch's cowboys sprinted out shouting. Boss ain't fighting alone. That was all it took. The yard exploded into chaos. Elias ducked another swing, grabbed Caleb by the shirt, and slammed him against the water trough. The ranch hands fought like men who worked the land every day, strong, steady, relentless. Caleb's hired boys were no match. Caleb staggered up, furious and breathing like a bull. Elias grabbed him again. If you come near her, he said, voice low and sharp, you better come with a preacher and your last words ready. Caleb backed away, trembling with rage but too afraid to come closer. He spat in the dirt and rode off, screaming that this wasn't over. Inside the house, Hannah had heard enough to tremble, but for the first time, she trembled because someone had stood between her and the man who hurt her. And the storm was just beginning. That evening, Elias rode to Dodge City to speak to Sheriff Cole Harding. The law didn't always work clean on the frontier, and both men knew it. But Elias refused to send Hannah back. Cole agreed. If they were going to do this, they'd do it proper, doctor's statement, witnesses, enough testimony to put Caleb on the losing end of a judge's ruling. It took weeks. Elias rode between towns, knocking on doors, gathering letters, bringing the doctor to Boone Ranch twice. Hannah grew stronger, though every night she asked the same question. Any progress? Hold on just a little longer, Elias always answered. Finally, the hearing day came. The courthouse felt colder than the prairie wind outside. Hannah sat beside Elias, hands clasped tight. The doctor spoke first. Then a shopkeeper. Then a neighbor who'd seen Caleb's temper more than once. Caleb himself didn't show. The law hadn't caught up to him. Then Hannah stood. She spoke not of pain, nor of what had been done to her. She spoke of wanting peace. Wanting safety. Wanting a life where fear wasn't the first thing she felt each morning. When she finished, the courtroom fell quiet. Judge Wilbur cleared his throat and granted her a temporary order of protection, forbidding Caleb from coming near her or Boone Ranch. A full hearing would follow once more witnesses were gathered. It wasn't victory. But it was hope. Hannah let out a long, shaking breath, the first free breath in years. Months passed. Strength returned to her. She helped in the kitchen, then the garden, then near the horses. She laughed with Mrs. Harper, hummed while folding linens, and Elias found himself listening for those soft sounds the way a man listens for rain after drought. One crisp morning, she woke pale and dizzy. Mrs. Harper smiled knowingly. That afternoon, the doctor confirmed it, Hannah was carrying a child. When she told Elias, he sat down hard, stunned. She feared he was upset until he laughed softly and wiped his eyes. Look at that, he whispered. Life still finds a way. To Hannah, the child was proof she was not broken. Proof that gentleness grows things cruelty never could. Far across the prairie, when Caleb heard the news, his face twisted, part regret, part fury. This ain't over, he muttered. But for the first time in her life, Hannah didn't care what he wanted. She felt worthy of love. Real love. Love that stayed.